Hanano. I'm originally from Hawaii, now living on Honolulu, and I will be the facilitator of this event tonight. To start it off, though, I would normally offer words of welcome, aloha, but we look for kupuna in the area to see whether or not they could help us with Pule. So, Hanale, would you please come forward and help us here?
Hello, Kako. Don't mind me, I was just asked if I would do this. It's an honor to do so. Ipuli mai. E aloha mai kia kua. Mahalo. Mahalo nui loa for your presence here tonight. I ask that you guide our minds and our souls in the direction that will truly serve Hawaii Island and the state of Hawaii. Without the damage that has already been seen and been done with these projects. I know there's all kinds of great technologies, a lot of great minds in this room. So I hope that we have a very pleasant meeting. Please allow everybody to speak their piece, whether you agree with them or not. So at least it's being heard. Again, name Kyoko, mahalo anu. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for what we'd like to do is to start off by giving you a brief overview of the PEIS process and the clean energy initiatives in Hawaii. So, if you would, we'll have this information maybe very helpful as we sort through tonight's memo. Then we'll give you an opportunity to prepare your comments orally, and we'll explain how else you can participate in this process. Okay.
Good evening. Once again, I have to turn it on so it works. Now it's on? Yes. My name is Jane Summerson. I work for the United States Department of Energy, and I'm the document manager for this programmatic environmental impact statement related to the Hawai'i Clean Energy project. This document had a number of cooperating agencies involved. First and foremost, the State of Hawai'i, led by Dept, and Andrea Gill is here tonight to represent them. Also the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and Marg Eckenrode, standing in the back here, is here representing them and can answer any questions about their kind of role in these projects. In addition, we had a lot of comment and involvement from the Environmental Protection Agency, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the National Park Service, Federal Aviation Administration, and the Marine Corps and the Navy. All of these agencies were very involved in giving us comments, in sharing their expertise and knowledge with us, and we feel the document was vastly improved by their involvement in it. A quick history, and I recognize a number of you, many of you have been involved in the process for quite a while. Some years ago, this started as the HIREP Wind Energy PEIS, and after the scoping process for that project, the State of Hawaii and the Department of Energy went back and discussed and said, we think we need to rethink what we're doing. This isn't broad enough. We need to go back out and ask people what we should be looking at. So about 20 months ago, my team came out again, and we were up at the high school and asked people, what should we look at? Broader than a wind project. What does the State of Hawaii need us to look at? And after we were done with those scoping meetings and we went back and thought about the things we had been told, we looked at the Hawai'i Clean Energy Initiative and the activities and technologies that qualify under that initiative to help Hawaii meet its goals. And we redefined the scope of the document to look at all 31 of those activities and technologies on all 6 of the islands in a general way in order to provide information to the residents of the state of Hawaii. That was based on those public scoping meetings in 2012. We also increased agency participation as a result of the comments of the scoping meetings that said, we need to get other people's input here, other expertise here. So the purpose of this document now is different, quite different from what it started out as in the HIREP wind PEIS. This document is now to provide information to the public, to the state agencies, to the federal agencies, to potential developers, other organizations, to help in the planning process as Hawaii meets its energy challenges by sharing what potential types of impacts these technologies could involve, so that as the projects are planned, you can work together to avoid these impacts. The information can be used by decision makers, by developers, by regulators, broad possibilities. And we're hoping that the public will use this information also for decisions ranging from activities or technologies you want to use for your own home, to your voting record, planning in the community, how the community wants to meet its energy challenges, in a broad range of methods. Now, the basis of and the definition for how we chose the activities and technologies we looked at is the Hawai'i Clean Energy Initiative, which 2008 we signed, the DOE and the State of Hawaii signed an MOU to work together to meet these goals by 2030. And Andrea is going to speak a little bit about the initiative and about where Hawaii is right now in meeting these goals.
Hi everyone, I'm a renewable energy specialist with the State Energy Office. Been in the office here in Hilo since 1980 and have been involved with the Clean Energy Initiative since it began in 2008. We have all seen this slide, or the information on this slide before. We are the most oil-dependent state in the nation, and in order to import all that oil, we are exporting billions of dollars every year. It's our goal with the State Energy Office to get off oil, and while we're at it, to get off coal if we can. We pay about 3 times the electricity rates that are typical on the U.S. mainland, and we believe this can be mitigated and also made more predictable if we are more reliant on our own indigenous renewable resources. Our policy has been developed over a number of years. I've been with the State Energy Office actually since the late 70s. The energy program began after the first oil embargo, when we had gasoline lines and everyone said, oh my heavens, we have an issue here in an island state where our energy is being imported. And at that time, there were very few salt water heaters. Photovoltaics was something no one knew how to pronounce. But we recognized we had an issue. The Office of the Energy Resources Coordinator was created, as was the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute, to focus the policy and the research and the minds of the state on the energy problems. So my office with Dept has got a statutory role in energy planning and policy development. And we recognize that clean energy not only changes our environmental impacts, but it's also an economic driver. The people involved in photovoltaic installation, just as an example, are a huge portion of our construction industry right now, bringing in an awful lot of paychecks and supporting a lot of families through the solar electricity industry. We have made quite a bit of progress since 2007. It was 2008 when the Clean Energy Initiative was signed. This shows the percentage of our renewable portfolio, which up until 2015 is combined with efficiency improvements as well as renewable electricity. Come 2015, by statute, we will be counting those separately. The renewable portfolio standard will be electricity only, and we will also have an efficiency portfolio standard where things such as solar water heating, seawater air conditioning, and other efficiency measures will be counted, and there will be goals for those as well. Our statutory goal for 2015 in renewable electricity is 15% should be renewable. We have already exceeded that in 2013 with 18.2%, and we're actually better than that because this doesn't include Kauai yet. They haven't submitted the data, so we weren't able to put them in the chart. But we are making progress that we had hoped to make. We're ahead of schedule, and as Jane pointed out, we're shooting for 40%. Actually, we're shooting to go beyond 40% renewable electricity in 2030, and to save enough gigawatt hours that would be 30% of the electricity that would have been used. So that's our efficiency goal. Our transportation goal is also to have 70% clean energy in transportation. With the help of everyone doing their bit, putting in their solar water heating in their photovoltaics, buying electric vehicles, and with our partners, with the Department of Energy and other partners, we have made waves across the nation. We're first in energy performance contracting. This is the second year we've been first in the nation. This is a way of getting efficiency measures in government buildings without putting taxpayer money up front. We pay for it with the savings that we get. The very first energy performance contract in the state was here at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, and has saved millions of dollars. We've been ranked first as the best potential for electric vehicles. We're doing quite well in the job growth, renewable energy attractiveness, and photovoltaics installed per capita. Got quite a few PVs going in, and we're working on the policies and regulations that will loosen that up and help us have even more photovoltaics. So as I said, by statute, we're shooting at 40% renewable electricity by 2030. Our policies hope to take us beyond that. And this is the Programmatic EIS is part of the programs of collaboration engagement. Everyone here is a stakeholder in renewable energy, or you wouldn't have taken the time out on an evening when you might have been surfing or going to a movie. You're here instead, and we appreciate that. Okay, we do expect that this PEIS will be useful. Jane listed several reasons why people would be able to use the information. If a specific project is proposed, it would need to go through all of its own appropriate state and federal environmental review processes. And we're hoping that the information that we have on environmental and cultural impacts for all of the technologies will be useful to inform the review of those projects and the preparation of those environmental statements. Jane, you're going to talk a little bit more about the Programmatic EIS.
It's a bright light. Okay, some of the key elements of this particular document. This document and this process are not proposing any specific project or technology or strategy. We are not proposing anything specific here, right? We are evaluating this broad range of activities and technologies, all of the activities and technologies that qualify under the HCEI initiative to help the state meet its goals. We looked at all of them across the board. We're not saying one is better than the other. We simply gave each one of them an unbiased analysis and presentation for what potential impacts that particular technology could involve when it was implemented. The way we did this for each technology was to define what we called a representative project. This is a hypothetical project We did our best to make it something that was reasonable for the state of Hawaii, because Hawaii is a very unique place, and the way some of these technologies are implemented, say on the mainland in somewhere like Utah, is very different than what it would make sense to do in Hawaii. So we tried to define representative projects that would make sense here, and then we used those representative projects, the scale of the project, the type of construction that it would involve, and the footprint of the project, and what would happen in its implementation and operation to define potential impacts that the type of project could involve. And that way, people can understand, okay, for a project that's X big, with X size of a footprint, that would make sense in the size town that we have, these are the kinds of impacts. And then, obviously, if you did something bigger than that, you're likely to have more impacts. If you do something smaller than that, it would be less. It gives you an example that you can make a comparison to that hopefully will be of relevance to your community, your home, and your life. None of these analyses eliminate the review for project-specific environmental analysis when someone actually proposes a real project. When a developer says, okay, I want to build something, they still have to go through the appropriate environmental analysis. If there's a federal involvement, that's a NEPA analysis. The state has, you have all of your own state environmental laws and regulations, and counties have regulations and environmental requirements. All of that still applies. Our document is more of a planning document to help people define what projects they want to pursue, what scale, what kind of place makes sense to site it, and how to interact with agencies and communities in order to make a project as successful as possible. Now, we used a traditional federal environmental review process, which is the NEPA process, the National Environmental Policy Act, which was signed by President Nixon. So it's been in effect for a number of years. And the purpose of that act is to ensure that federal decision makers do not ever make a decision that involves a physical action without first being informed by an environmental review. Okay? Our process, the federal process, requires public involvement, puts a great deal of emphasis on the role of the public and on getting public input in what we're doing. We also are required cooperating agency involvement. We need to contact every other federal agency, which could have either permitting authority or special expertise related to the area that we are working in, or if it's a project-specific action, that project, and ask them to get involved as well, so that we're benefiting from our sister agencies and we're not working in a small area. This particular document is what's called a programmatic environmental impact statement, and in the regulations, and it is defined in the national regulations, it's one that analyzes impacts of very broad agency actions. It's not the type of, it's not an EIS that is looking at building a building or putting in a highway or a dam, a single specific project with a single location. We're looking at a broad range of potential projects. In this particular case, we don't have a single concrete project. We very carefully did not define any. We wanted to keep this essentially a generic planning document for the state of Hawaii and the residents of Hawaii to use as you all define for yourselves how you need to meet these energy challenges. Because it doesn't seem appropriate that Washington, D.C., the federal government, would come in and tell the state of Hawaii and the residents of Hawaii what they should do. You all need to choose your own future, but the state, the federal government and the Department of Energy are committed to supporting the state and the residents of Hawaii in the path forward that they choose to meet these energy challenges. In the document, we look at 17 resource areas. These are pretty standard across EISs, although some of them, again, vary by what geographic area and what specific projects you might be looking at. The example I use is in my home state of New Mexico. I don't look at coastal zone management very much. It's not an issue for us. You know, obviously it's a huge issue in the state of Hawaii, so that's an area we looked at in detail. But these are generally what you will see in most EISs that the federal government does, and we looked at every one of these in this document. One of the things that we found of interest is there are certain areas, resource areas, that are of particular interest and importance in the state of Hawaii, and the ones after doing all of this analytical work that really stood out for us, biological resources are huge. The number of threatened and endangered species and the instances of unique habitat in these islands is very impressive. It's of importance to the world in terms of biology. And so that is an area that is of key importance in looking at projects here. Land and submerged land. You're an island state. You don't have millions of square miles of extended land that some of our states have. So you need to be very careful about what you do with the land you have and the submerged land around the island, because the resources there are limited and finite. Cultural and historic resources, because of the native Hawaiian population, which has been here for millennia, which is still an active population, in many cases living a traditional lifestyle with the very strong spiritual and traditional cultural ties to the island. This is of great importance in virtually all of the types of technologies and activities that we looked at. And then, in addition to the traditional cultural and historic, the scenic and visual resources, because of the tourism economy in this island, are very important to take into consideration as development of any of these technologies moves forward. Okay, what we provided in the draft PEIS, we described the 31 energy efficiency activities and renewable energy technologies. So there is a description of each one of these technologies. If you are interested in the different technologies of biomass, in wind turbines, in distributed solar, in hydro, in alternative fuels for transportation, there is a section for each one of those that describes that technology. We describe the existing environment for every one of those 17 resource areas for the state, and then in certain cases, island by island, when there is a fair amount of variety between the 6 islands. We then look at potential environmental impacts for each of those 31 activities and technologies in each of those 17 environmental resource areas. So, for instance, what are the potential impacts that, say, a wind turbine could have on each of those resource areas? A wind turbine probably isn't going to have a whole lot on submerged land. If it's a dry land-based wind turbine, it's probably not going to impact, say, your submerged land very much, but certainly it's something you need to look at your threatened and endangered species and by resource area, whether you are likely to see potential impacts or not. Then what we looked at is what are best management practices or mitigation activities that can avoid, minimize, or mitigate those potential impacts. Our major conclusions when we finished this are, first of all, pretty much all of these activities and technologies would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions as a result of lowering the dependence on fossil fuels. So all of them will be helping to achieve the general goal and the specific goals of the state of Hawaii if they're implemented. In a general sense, most of the activities and technologies in energy efficiency alternative fuels and transportation modes, in a general sense, have the lowest potential for environmental impacts. Because in many cases, if you're putting on a solar hot water heater or seawater air conditioning, you're making a change to an existing building, that's a small footprint. It's not a large footprint for new construction, and the operation impacts tend to be fairly low. In general, most of the utility scale renewable energy technologies have the highest potential for impact. And that's the footprint, the scale. Once you get so that you're providing enough energy at a utility level, then you've got a larger scale operation with a larger footprint. And that's just a pretty much a logical conclusion. But the other thing we realize is that most of these potential impacts can be mitigated or avoided with the proper best management practices and the proper mitigation activities. And we've done our best to provide that information in the document so that people can understand, because human activities have impacts. We do, by existing. But there are things we can do to lessen our impacts. And we are hoping that our document will help people when they decide which one of these activities or which suite of activities, because it won't be a single one, that they want to pursue. There are ways to make them less impactful to the environment. How do you comment on this draft? We have an email address, Hawai'i Clean Energy PEIS @ee.due.gov, and that goes to my contracting team and myself. You can go to our PEIS website, and there's an electronic comment form, and you simply type in your comment, hit enter, and we get it that way. You can send it by U.S. mail to me. I'm duty stationed in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and that's my address. Or you can make your comment tonight, and we have two ways to do that. You can sign up and make your comment orally, and we have a court reporter who will take down your comment. Or we have comment forms, and you can write it out and hand it in to us if you would prefer not to stand up in front of people and make your comment orally. We're hoping all of you will participate and will comment. That's what we're here for, although we're also enjoying your beautiful island. But we want you to participate. That's a very important part of this process. And thank you again for coming here tonight.
So my task now is to afford you an opportunity to present your comments orally. And as Dr. Sorensen said, there are other ways to offer your comments, either in writing or by email. And the slide up there is also on the counter over there, so if you need the contact information, just go over there and take a look. So as we offer our comments tonight, just a couple of points to make. We really, the state and the federal officials that are here, sincerely want to hear your thoughts on the 31 different technologies and alternatives for clean energy in Hawaii. But we also want to make sure that we respect your time and your efforts. So to do that, what we're going to do is set forth what requirements that we've done consistently through these meetings. And that is, we'd ask you to keep your comments, your initial comments, to 3 minutes, so that you can respect the rights of others to speak up. And if you'd like to circle back at the end after everybody else has spoken, of course, we'll be around to hear your comments as well. And to respect the rights of your neighbors, it would be nice if we could restrain from asking questions and provoke them until afterwards, so that we can have an opportunity for real civil pono discussion. So what we're going to do then is I'm going to call up your names, and then if you could please spell your name out so Kathy, our court reporter, can dutifully enter that into the record. You see, when she keeps the records, the minutes are actually read by a lot of people far beyond those that have gathered here today. Every place from Honolulu to Washington, D.C., we need to see your comments. So please, if we can start on those premises, then perhaps we can have a very productive evening. We really look forward to hearing your comments. So First up, we have Judith Mura, followed by Richard Ah, and Corey Hardin. So if you can please come forward.
My name is Judith Mura, M-U-R-A. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm here to speak against geothermal and to please ask your help to stop any geothermal expansion and drilling in Hawaii. I brought the Hawaii Tribune Herald. In it, in March 7, front page, and I quote, states fresh water will be stressed by global warming. This statement was directed to all islands of Hawaii, and especially for Honolulu's overpopulation, usage, lack of rainfall. For all the islands, fresh water sits on salt water. Overusage of fresh water is turning their fresh water to brackish water. On the Big Island, ORMAT, or PGB, uses thousands of gallons of fresh water to cool their machinery. PGB's expansion, coupled with global warming, is not what a sustainable clean energy is all about. We, the people, have rights to clean water for ourselves, our family, our food gardens, our future. Without water, it's game over. Mahalo.
Hey, Robin, will you remind people about the secret sign?
Sometimes we get carried away, so there's going to be a 1-minute signal for those of you that got too energetic.
My name is Richard Ha. H-A is the last name. H-A. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. The main thing I wanted to mention was that I'm here representing the Big Island Community Coalition, and this group is interested in getting the lowest cost energy as possible for everybody. And the rationale for this is that rising electricity rates acts like a gigantic regressive tax. It affects the most defenseless among us the worst. Just recently, in 2012, Professor Joseph Stiglitz, who is a Nobel economist, said that in order for renewable energy solutions to be sustainable, it really needs to meet the triple bottom line of sustainability. And it should include social sustainability, socioeconomic, social sustainability, environmental sustainability, as well as economic sustainability. So my point here is that every one of the options should meet this requirement. And then I'd like to also mention that as we look toward the future, say 20 years from now, where do we want to be 20 years from now? Because right now we're kind of at the bleeding edge because we have the highest price, we're moving forward in solar and other things quicker than anybody else because we got the economic incentive to do it. But looking on the road 20 years, the whole country, the whole world will catch up with us. And we have to be careful because being first, you have a better chance. It's difficult to be first. The chances of failing is greater than if you were copying the first. So to go back to what things might look like 20 years from now, everybody will have solar, let's say, and we won't have any particular advantage. We'll just have, we'll be equal to everybody. And the same thing is with wind. Certain places will have good wind, and we have good wind as well. but it's not a great advantage to the rest of the world. And the last thing is, our own resource here is geothermal is stable. It'll be around for 500,000 years, and it's low cost. And what that'll do is it'll give our people an economic advantage to the rest of the world. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Corey.
Thank you for holding this meeting and opportunity to comment. And and my name Corey, C-O-R-Y, and H-A-R-D-E-N, and I pretty much follow my written comments. And I do want to commend the Department of Energy for broadening the range of issues that were analyzed. It was originally just big wind, and they responded to the community by expanding that, so that's great. However, I hear some knowledgeable people saying the goal of the Clean Energy Initiative is not really to explore energy alternatives, but to preserve the Hawai'i Electric Company and to get the undersea cable built. So I'd like to see that addressed. For example, in one of the tables, summary of impacts for selected technologies, there is only one alternative where beneficial impacts are identified, complete with a web address for more information, and the beneficial impacts are only identified for one alternative, the undersea cable. That's the only one I could find, so that seemed odd. Also on the cooperating agencies, I wish folks would get comments from Department of Land and Natural Resources, because they will have a different perspective, being very protective of the land, and they're very knowledgeable about it. Let's see, and I made a lot of comments at the 2012 scoping hearing. At least in the summary, I didn't see any of them, so I submitted them again, and I hope you'll look at them again. Let's see, a couple other specific things. I noticed there was a Hawaii Renewable Development Venture funded by the Department of Energy, and it's awarding thousands of dollars to private businesses for various projects, and I wonder what environmental studies were done for that. I'd like to see consideration of impacts from accidents and disasters for the different energy sources. I think it just consider impacts for if things are going well, but some things can have worse accidents than other things. Let's see, like, oil tankers leaking. And I hope we will consider impacts of our energy choices on faraway places. For example, if we depend on oil, there's going to be fracking in the States. If we go with palm oil, that may involve environmental destruction and child labor in Indonesia and Malaysia. We also need to look at how much fuel it takes to produce fuel. For example, oil, some people say we've tapped all the easy to get sources. Now we're going to places where it's hard to get the oil out, and so you burn a lot of energy just trying to get the oil. And for hydrogen, most United States hydrogen is gotten using fossil fuel. I'd like to see evaluation of the pros and cons of microgrids versus the current utility monopoly system. For example, Parker Ranch has a little microgrid going, and we're so used to the electric company as a monopoly, and they send everything out to everybody. What happens if you have small microgrids? Just holler when my time's up. Is it up?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. It's amazing how quickly it goes. But we do have I have her copy comments.
Thank you. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you. Next up, we have John Olson, followed by Joy Cash and Growth Loss.
Thank you. I would like a point of information if you can give it to me before I start. In your analysis, I didn't see anything that gave a cost for solar per watt. Did cost per watt for solar in your analysis anywhere?
We did not look at.
The cost per watt. I see.
Okay, well, thank you.
I don't know what to say.
John's speechless, what a concept.
There's no cost. All electricity is free, or it all costs $1 million a watt. I'm sorry, I'm stunned. Anyway, let me get off of this. We'll just let that go. This process with, you make note of the fact that the Hawaii process starts in 2008. We're 2014. I can tell you in 2008, the cost of solar was about $6 a watt. And it was hard to get. Today, the solar is, it's about $1.30 a watt, and I can buy it at my local farmer's market. Or I can go into Home Depot. And so, what I'm suggesting to you here is that what you've done is you've analyzed the death of the dinosaur. The utility, the mega utility, is for all intents and purposes done. And this is not just my opinion. Morgan Stanley came out with a recent analysis that said basically this whole thing, that if you are holding stock in any major utility that is not in the northeastern part of the United States, prepare to lose your ass. Okay? So the other thing that I did ask for in the hearing that you, Corey, had mentioned in 2012 was an analysis by island. We noticed that we are not interconnected in the utilities in the state of Hawaii. Each island is a sole and independent body, and about the only energy connectivity we have is the barge that comes in when the weather's good. Sometimes it doesn't come in. You know, that in terms of looking at this, in terms of an analysis of both cost, reliability, all these other things, and keeping in mind that when you speak to geothermal, there's geothermal and there's geothermal. I would point out that the current version of geothermal relies heavily on pentane as a binary for their binary systems. And at which point there is no binary, there is no energy from the geothermal plant. So it is no more or less secure than any other fossil fuel derived process for this island. One thing I can pretty much guarantee is the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Thank you.
John.
What's his last name?
Would you like to use the mic?
I'm sorry, I'm done.
I'm Joy Cash, and I gave my name earlier. It's very simple. My name is simple. I'm here tonight to call upon our entire community, all ratepayers of this island, both residential and business. It's important, I believe, that we create community-owned utilities. And I know that people are not happy with Kauai's system. We can learn from their mistakes. We're wise in that regard. Yeah? And, you know, we know. Germany has installed solar, and they're shocked and surprised. They're creating much more electricity than they anticipated. And the Germans aren't slow. Siemens and all that crowd, they're very sharp guys, yeah? So if they can do it, we can do it. Now on the mainland, the counties, Sonoma and Marin County, have switched to community-owned utilities very successfully. And so, and it's the newest trend. And because of our limited resources on this island, we're an island community, we need to look at not paying $100,000 a month to a CEO at Hilo. We can't afford that anymore. This is a new day. This is a new era. Yeah. If anybody here make $100,000 a month, it makes no sense, does it? Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm not picking on them. I'm just saying their era is passing. It's a dying dinosaur in this world. Now, as far as geothermal, I'm sorry, my phone is talking to me now like normal. As far as geothermal, this is not my opinion, because I am not a geologist, but my friend in San Diego, Lori Robbins, PhD in geology for over 30 years, has traveled the world. She knows our geology here. She's visited our island and many other Polynesian islands. She says, no way to geothermal. She says it's too poisonous. It will induce earthquakes, induce seismology is the term, yeah. These are things I didn't know till I asked her about it. I said, you know, what's the deal? Her opinion is, after all the experience she has, no geothermal, no way on this island. So that's my considered opinion too, just now. But, you know, this is a great opportunity for all of our island. Every one of us pays a utility bill. Too much, too much. We can no longer do that. It doesn't serve us economically, environmentally, in any way. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having us. My name is Jeffrey Last, Geoffrey Last. And I moved here 30 years ago, and I was excited about moving here. And I love this place. This is my home now. And when I got here, geothermal was wonderful. God, clean, green, and renewable. I was excited about this. I believed that the Department of Health was allowing open venting into our neighborhood. The regulator was allowing open venting into our neighborhood with toxins, H2S, and all the heavy metals. They were dumping all their garbage on the ground. I still believed in geothermal because I was involved in getting my life together like lots of people here. You're involved until something happens. Something happened in '91, it blew up. The light went on for Jeffrey. Jeffrey went out and got an education, and he found out that geothermal was not clean, not green, and not renewable. It's a lie, a big, fat lie. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And what we have going on here now is, in the newspaper yesterday, PGV by the EPA was found with 14 counts of being in violation. That's just for last year. What about the last 20 years? Here we have the Department of Health who's regulating them for 20 years, the same Department of Health who allowed our air to be poisoned, my son to drive through clouds of H2S on a bus and get sick. He allowed this to happen, the DOE, and they're still allowing it to happen. They're not watching PGV. PGV is regulating themselves. So you want to have new energy here, then you've got to get regulators that are really going to regulate. Now you made a nice opening statement and said the federal government doesn't want to tell the state government how to live. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't want Honolulu telling us what to do over here on the Big Island. And I don't even want Hilo telling us how to live in Puna. We're the sacrificial community out here in Puna. They don't care about us. We're a bunch of hippies, drug addicts, welfare people. I mean, we've been hearing this crap for 30 years, and it's a lie. I worked my butt off in a flower business, and lots of other people are hard-working people out there. And I'm sick to death of this clean, green, and renewable geothermal. It's baloney. Now, get it right, people. The other things, judge. But this is garbage. Get rid of the Department of Health. Man, they suck. I mean, I can't tell you any other reason. I'm mad at them. I'm not mad at these other people. I'm not mad at Big Mike here for running that thing. I'm mad at the Department of Health for regulating it, or not regulating it. And the final thing, one more little thing, is the fact that PGV doesn't even own that plant out there. It's owned by some dummy corporation. And this is corporate law. This is the way it goes. So if that plant blows up, they walk. Or Matt walks, PGV walks, and who gets stuck? We get stuck in our community. The state's not even going to come in and help. Thank you.
We have next Bill Steiner, Senator, and then Kenneth Hunt.
My name is Bill Steiner, S-T-E-I-N-E-R. I only wanted to make a comment about small farmers. You mentioned biomatter, and not mentioned was oil seeds, if I can remember. Oil seeds are a crop that has big potential, I think, for this island. Some years ago, when I was dean for the College of Ag, I imported 8,000 oil palm trees and planted them out to different farmers, cooperative farmers. Those trees are now starting to produce oil palm nuts, and we're looking to form a cooperative to actually make biodiesel. So we will grow our own biodiesel. We won't import it from Indonesia or anyplace else. There's a lot of land here in the islands to do that kind of thing. So I think that's a potential for making biodiesel here in the state as a transportation fuel, possibly as an electric fuel too, although I think there's better ways like solar to go there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Beadle.
Aloha, my name is Russell Ruderman. I'm Vice Chair of the State Senate Energy Committee and a resident of Puna. I thank you folks for coming here, and despite some of what's been said, I myself am really glad that the federal government is involved in looking at the situation here, because we've done a terrible job of managing it ourselves. We need a fresh look at it. To summarize really briefly, there's a couple of things that myself and most people I know don't like about the way we're going, and one is to continue considering the cable. We feel it's absurd, and I'll get into that. We don't like more geothermal because we've had experience with it. And we love solar power. It's as simple as that. You won't find anybody objecting to solar power or an aggressive expansion of solar power in the state. And when you look at the worldwide situation, it is obvious that that's the solution. If we haven't looked at its cost lately, we ought to, because it's dropping year by year dramatically, and it will continue to drop. So each island needs to be independent energy-wise. The cable cannot be the answer. It's not only possible, first of all, it is possible. It's also only right. There's no need to harm communities to take care of the population in Hawaii. If there were a need, we ought to talk about which communities should get harmed. But there is not a need, and we ought not to sacrifice any more communities. You look at Puna has this very similar attitude because of the geothermal plants that people in Lanai had when they had the big wind plant. No one wants to sacrifice their beautiful environment for the sake of unsustainable living in an urban situation in Honolulu. And I'm glad you're looking at, in addition to physical impacts, cultural impacts, and well-being impacts, and those will lead you towards the conclusion that each island must take care of its own issues. That also leads to the most robust system and the most reliable system. Those are two different considerations, as I know you all know. Talk about the cable for a minute. The cost of the cable, which is unknowable, by the way, whatever the estimate is, there's no such cable in the world. And all of our experience in Hawaii is that when a project that takes 10, 20 years to plan and complete is done, it costs 3 to 10 times what we estimated when it started. So whatever figure you come up with, and I don't know how anyone can give you a figure, multiply it times 10, and then realize that we still have to generate all of our electricity after that. Whereas you take that cost, which is certainly over $1 billion, put that into renewable energy infrastructure, and you don't need the cable, you don't need to keep generating the electricity. That's the solution. A couple of other little aspects of the cable. Who fixes it when it breaks? How are you going to fix it? How are they going to survive while it's broken? And it has a limit on how much energy it can transmit. We can't handle that limit. You've heard a lot about geothermal, and I know I'm going to run out of time, so I won't say a lot about it, except that the experience of geothermal, the reality of geothermal in Hawaii is so different than the reality of geothermal worldwide, and that's why we're against it. We don't not like geothermal, we've just seen what happens in Hawaii. We all love and respect Mike and all the individuals involved, but we don't like the actual reality of it. It's more toxic than elsewhere, and because of a volcanic geology, it's more unstable than elsewhere. And let's say the state was depending on geothermal in Puna, and there was a cable. Right now, as we speak, there's a lava flow heading that, if it continues for another 10 months, will cut off the geothermal plant from the rest of the world. Right now, it's unpredicted, unexpected, and that's when it comes to reliability. Depending on a distant power source that's transmitted from a great distance is not the future of energy development. It does not lead to reliability. A solar panel on the roof with battery and energy storage and inverters, that's reliability. I'm going to try to hurry up here. I could either talk really fast or run out of time here. We're glad you're here because both our utility system and our state energy office, with all due respect and esteem, who I have great admiration for, have not been making great decisions. That's why we're in the situation we're in. The highest energy costs in the nation, the highest paid CEO in the utility industry, the highest profit of the utility industry. And there's still an attitude in the Department of Energy, and I've gotten this from the horse's mouth, that geothermal is still the holy grail for Hawaii's energy future. That's still what they think. That was their plan from 20 years ago when solar cost 20 or 30 times what it does now. And we didn't have the storage technologies that we have now. People say solar will never be firm power, but that's not true. Solar combined with energy storage is firm power, and there's all kinds of very exciting very advanced technologies being developed right now to combine these two things. I spoke with a high official in the Hawai'i in HEI. I said, why don't you guys go more into solar? And they said, we can't handle the reliability. I said, why don't you do energy storage? There are batteries, and there's other physical technologies such as HIREP, system pump storage, water pump storage. His answer was, well, that's too expensive. Yeah, it's laughable because it's expensive compared to what? Compared to unreliability of our electric grid, compared to buying oil forever, compared to the cost of a cable? No, it's really cheap compared to that stuff. And when you look at pumped water storage, it's only expensive if there's not some other need for the water transportation. For example, we have a wet side and a dry side. There's no reason we couldn't pump water uphill during the day and let it flow downhill and generate electricity as needed to Kona. Or adopt any of the various very exciting and much more cost-effective battery energy storages that are being used on grids in large scale in other places. You can have batteries at the substation, you can have batteries at the utility, you can have batteries at the home or at the solar installation. All those things remove the variability and the reasons that the utility doesn't like solar that can all be addressed with energy storage. So solar combined with energy storage is the most robust and the most reliable and the cheapest solution that we have available to us. and it addresses all the concerns. So I just once again urge you to look at the robustness of our plan, the reliability of our plan, the cost considering solar dropping so radically. And once again, I thank you for coming. Please save us from the terrible energy planning that our utility and our state has done so far.
Most of what I was going to say has already been said, so I'm not going to go there. Other than say totally anti-geothermal, as we have it on the Big Island. Geothermal in general could work, but not here. And we've already demonstrated it does not work. My biggest concern is that we have a horse and buggy situation here. We have a company that stays in power because about 100 years ago, we thought it would be better to have public service utility commissions so that we would not be gouged price-wise for our valuable essential services such as electricity. Well, that was fine when you had to have a grid. We don't need a grid. More importantly, we don't need a grid when it's run so poorly. And I thought it was interesting because when I was doing my research, something I found that I thought was wonderful. It's not what I think, it is what our own Public Service Utility Commission is saying about HEPCO, or HECO, sorry. And I thought this says it all. So I cannot support in any form, any money being given to HECO, regardless of the reason, because they don't know what they are doing. And this is what the Public Service Commission is saying. This is Exhibit A, you can find it online. It is the Commission's inclinations on the future of Hawaii's electric utilities, aligning the utility business model with customers' interests and public policy goals. The Commission is compelled to offer the following perspective on the vision, the business, the strategies, and regulatory policy changes required to align HEPCO company's business model with customers' interests and the state's public policy goal. The Commission is compelled because the HEPCO companies failed to articulate a sustainable business model in the intervening time period since this directive was set forth by the Commission almost a year ago. As the Commission noted last year, the nature of the electric utility business is evolving rapidly in light of technical market and public policy changes that have and will continue to occur in Hawaii. And the Commission has observed that the HEPCO company appears to lack movement to a sustainable business model to address the technological advancements and increasing customers' expectations. The Commission observes that some mainland electric utilities have begun to define, articulate, and implement the vision for the electric utility of the future. Without such a long-term, customer-focused business strategy, it is difficult to ascertain whether the company increasing capital investments are strategic investments or simply a series of unrelated capital projects to expand utility rate base and to increase their profit, appearing to provide little or limited long-term customer value. Now, there's a lot more to that, but I'm running out of time. So my point is that, as our senator says, whether it costs $1 billion, $5 billion, or $30 billion to build a cable, it's not to do anything but to keep the utility company in business. And that is not our role, and that is not the purpose of what utility companies were designed for. Right. If we wanted to take the same amount of money, I've heard, $5 billion, we could put on every existing structure in Hawaii some form of wind, as it's applicable, or photovoltaic of some type, or solar, or both, and we would have no need for the grid, and just as important, because of one of those three-letter alphabet agencies, Homeland Security would be happy to say that our grid would be less likely to be destroyed or attacked by terrorism.
Terry. Last name Kim, Callahan.
Aloha.
I have, in 1 year, if I were to say last year what I'm going to say now, people would say it's pipe dreaming. In 1 year, technology, I do all know, has changed so dramatic. For an old man like me, it's really hard to keep up. But for those of you who listened to President Obama's speech to some business organizations last week, I was very surprised and also elated that his whole emphasis of energy of tomorrow was solar. And I hope we all heard that. I want to read very briefly a letter I wrote to the Public Utilities Commission dated January 22nd of this year. And what it was in the commission meeting, appealed to them of the following. The integrated resource plan required by this commission is to identify the long-term power needs and how those needs are to be met. This plan that they were reviewed for approval or disapproval, it took, I think, 2 years and a lot of resource and money to complete. And I stated, it is asked that the present completed plan that awaits the commission action be tabled. It is also requested that this commission pursue the development of a new updated plan that will take into account the very rapid changes in technology, demand and supply, and the lifestyles of this state. This plan should identify all the major alternatives available and the pros and cons. This plan should be developed independently from any of the power companies. The development of the new plan, based on contemporary issues, could also include reviewing problems faced by the providers and users of today. I'll skip to, I stated that because part of the plan was an inter-island cable. Perhaps this will give and provide such as HEI and HALCO and Maui Electric an opportunity to reassess the direction to take for their future. HEI has stated, and it is in writing, it is years ahead of schedule in meeting its renewable energy goals, and it won't have to rely on any controversial inter-island cables to bring power from the neighbor islands to Oahu, the company says. Hawai'i Electric Industries also stated Oahu can meet its renewable energy requirement and its power needs on its own. And the president just recently stated to everyone in regards to the PUC that their biggest problem is an oversupply of energies right now. To this commission, the commission, but this body is responsible for this plan. In 1 year, your plan is outdated. In 1 year, your information, therefore, is outdated, and any conclusion you derive from it will be outdated unless you conclude it is outdated. Thank you. Aloha, my name is Robert Patrici. I'm the PETRICCI, I'm the president of Pumpong Alliance. I want to thank you all for giving us an opportunity to have some input into this project. Unfortunately, I have to tell you, I think you have a fundamental problem, and it's an economic problem. It's not going to work. The costs are too high. Right now already, Helco peaked in 1996, 1997. Their customer base is shrinking. Honolulu is already 10% solar. This island is 8% solar. Maui is the fastest growing solar community in the nation right now, and prices are plummeting. And a big part of the problem are distribution costs. You have wires, you have poles, you have tree trimmers, you have the trucks, fleets of brand new trucks. You have the administration. Somebody will say that the distribution costs are not more than 50%. I say they're wrong. Because you have to figure in what are all the distribution costs. Helco is basically an energy distribution company. They do some power production.
They pay 18 cents for some power, they pay 11 cents, we pay 43 cents. The difference is over 50%. And that's distribution. And those, there's a worldwide energy revolution. And if you look around the world, you'll see people going to distributed power. They're going to decentralized power. They are not building large centralized power plants because the distribution costs are not going to be able to be competitive. So, and then you add the cost of this cable. For the cost of the cable, you honestly could install so much solar power that there's not even a contest there. Last year in Hawaii, we installed 179 megawatts of solar power. And it's going to double this year, and it's going to double next year. And my community is not on the grid. We are not going to connect to the grid because it would cost us too much money. And so what you've seen is a worldwide revolution and a competition for trillions of dollars. The electrical energy market is trillions of dollars. And you have universities in Korea and China and all these companies developing all these new technologies, and that's why solar prices are crashing. And the same thing is about to happen to batteries. It's already happening. Fuel cells, other types of water storage. You are basically using 18th century technology where we nailed a wire to a tree from the Pony Express, had the telegraph. This is the 21st century, and I'm sorry. I know you did a lot of work on this project, and I really appreciate it. My honest opinion is it's never going to work economically. We're not going to buy your power because it's going to cost too much money.
Aloha. And I am Ole, with the accent. Kind of accent on the E. Ole. And I'd like to broaden this discussion a little bit. Solar and wind, they're both free, clean energy sources. But they both have a problem. Now, the sun doesn't shine at night, wind isn't always blowing. But I'm not here to talk about problems, I'm here to talk about solutions. There's a third energy source that nobody seems to be paying any attention to. And we're surrounded by it.
Tidal. Luna.
There's this Pacific Ocean out here. Think H2O.
OTEC.
Not OTEC. Hydrogen. But the problem here is the hydrogen isn't free. You got to extract it from the water. Now that's where our solar and wind comes in. When it's producing plenty, free energy, it takes energy to extract the hydrogen from the water. Once you extract it, you got a product that you can transport, you can store. It's perfectly mobile, perfectly usable, and essentially with solar and wind, the energy is free, so the product is free. You can produce it on any of the islands. We're surrounded by this beautiful ocean. So I'd just like to share this idea with you, and, I think this should be part of the discussion. Mahalo.
Thank you. Richard Beetleman, followed by Jim Albertini, and then Sally.
I'm going to give you this. Thank you. I'm Richard Beetleman, and I'm going to repeat myself here again because I think it's a very important issue that seems to be continually overlooked. In 2010, I wrote an email to Jim Kawakawa, who is the head volcanologist at HBO. Has USGS ever been asked to weigh in on geothermal energy production in Buddha? For those of us who live in Lava Zone 1, it seems ridiculous to be drilling in an area that is presumably the most hazardous zone in all of the islands. That was my question to Jim. Here's his response. Good question. HBO has not been formally asked to testify or submit information on geothermal development in Hawaii in the last several years. You've identified a relevant point that we have made before, but it seems we have been overlooked in the current flood of interest in geothermal. My goodness. It's called dollars, I think. Yeah. That what makes geothermal so attractive at Kilauea also poses a threat to the power generation facility and the customers that it depends on. You are correct that the lava zone flow hazard map that was developed designates hazard zone 1 as the most hazardous lava zone flow because it is directly over a volcanic rift. The volcanic rift zone erupts frequently. That hazard threatens homes and power plants alike. Of course, it is that same rift zone that is the most lucrative geothermal target in the state. Let's put some dollar signs around that, huh? If you are worried about further geothermal drilling starting at a volcano eruption, there's no evidence that deep drilling has encountered liquid magma, sometimes intentionally, but has not started a lava eruption. I know of one instance where about 1 cubic meter of magma came up through the drill string before the drill hole was plugged, but that's all. So he's saying that there's no evidence, but we just have to see what happens, huh? Now, one of the other things that Jim said, it's not going to, if we have a blowout in a geothermal well, it's not just going to affect the surrounding community. The more reliability, the more we rely on geothermal energy, it's not just going to affect our community, but it's going to affect those ratepayers who depend on that energy. And it's not just going to be Puna.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you for your time.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Albertini, and I've been living out in Curtis Town off the grid for 33 years. I want to give you the simple story here. We never wanted to hook into HELCO from the beginning. We wanted to live a little lighter on the earth. But without our requesting it, HELCO sent us an estimate of what it would cost to bring electric poles to our farm. It was $20,000. In 33 years, we haven't spent $20,000 on solar. And I have lights, computers, refrigeration, freezers, even a big freezer where I put all my wild pig meat in to share with people in need. Okay. That's in 33 years. So what we need today, I think, and this would be something for Russell Ruderman and others to think about, we need a finance mechanism for what Richard Claw calls the rubber slipper crowd. Because we had to start small scale with 2 batteries, and little by little, as we farmed and raised enough money, we could expand our solar system, our panels, and things like this. Today, the battery storage, it's maintenance free, but we need a finance mechanism, so that's something for the rural people, decentralized, that we need to work on. I want to make a comment about the Department of Energy. Before I came here, I Googled the DOE to see what their budget was for clean energy. It's $6.3 billion a year they spend. But the same DOE, Department of Energy, spends $7.6 billion to maintain the nuclear weapons systems in the United States. Now we need to change the priorities here.
I speak as a peace activist. Let's put more money into clean energy than we are into nuclear weapons. And finally, I'd like to make comment on geothermal. Under the health and safety aspect, dealing with geothermal, I want to ask a question. Does geothermal impacts address the spiritual and psychological impacts to Native Hawaiian practitioners of desecration of the Hawaiian deity Pele? And how do you avoid, minimize, or mitigate the desecration of Pele and the psychological impacts to Pele worshippers by geothermal drilling? My answer is, you don't do it. No more geothermal drilling.
Hi. Before I start my stuff, I just want to do some housekeeping stuff. I've been on you guys' list and I just got the notice yesterday. Okay? None of the, I'm supposed to approve for Nakunamokukia. I have one from all 6 major districts of this island. And so, an electronic copy, first of all, I don't have capacity to download besides your files. But I need to be able to take those to these other districts that I communicate with, so I can share that information. But I can't do it on a disk. You can't change the pages, compare this to that, you know how that goes. So I'm requesting a hard copy. I left my information on how to get it to me. And as quickly as you possibly can, because apparently this deadline is right around the corner. And so, anyway, so, get back on the time part now. Okay. I'm Hawai'i Ferguson. I'm the spokesperson for Nakunamokukia. I'm also a Native religious practitioner. I'm with the Temple of Luna. Pele is the first of the Amakua. Now, in your energy programs, you have all different kinds of things, but I want to specifically talk about geothermal, because this is, I thank very much Jim, who spoke before me, because I am the person who is injured. Continuously, it rips me, it rips me so bad. And if you start thinking that somehow this is the gift of nature, you're wrong. You're raped, and you're continually raped. And now you want to put her out on the street for any other Tom, Dick, and Harry to get. And so that is very, very, very offensive. But another problem is that you need to look and understand the Hawaiian mythology. You have to understand that Pele's on this island, in that area, Palimamau, for a reason. It's not like she couldn't have been every place else, because she was. So when you start talking about fracking, which is one of the things that's on you guys' list, you better really do some homework here, because there are unintended consequences that you do not want to walk into. Now, I know everybody looks at you, oh, these Hawaiians, they get a little dramatic. Well, you know, how else can I possibly tell you? This is really scary shit. It's really scary shit. Very historically scary shit, so it's not like me making this stuff up. I'll just move along with that. I'm telling you, I am 1,000% against geothermal and 3,000% against fracking.
Yep.
Even worse. There is nothing that cannot be accomplished, especially with the rapid graduation of technology today. Things like the Tesla battery science that's going on, the solar accumulator type of things, I guess that's what they call them. There are so many different ways to do that. Then it's absolutely ridiculous to think we're going to rely on power lines or cables. The need for communities to have their own facilities to be able to power their areas is very, very important. Like you said, if you're not centralized, you're not going to get bombed there. That's a good point. There are a lot of things to talk about. But it also, you know, this blows my mind. The last time you guys were here 2 years ago, who did you talk to? In the meantime, I spent all night last night reading the testimonies. That was just the testimonies. That wasn't even the stuff that you got in your stuff, because I can't download it. costs me too much money. And I just don't have facilities to do that. But where's the information? I mean, guys like us, we're on the list. You know, why are we getting little updates? What, it took you 2 years to come out and say, hey, guess what? Here's what else you got for you. You got 3 minutes to make a fucking comment. Excuse my language. You got 3 minutes to make a comment. That's not correct. You know, I would love to be able to sit here and dissect this stuff and tell it. I'll read it. I actually do read this stuff because it concerns me in a great deal. If it affects me, it affects every one of you. I'm just first involved in the line. And so, I would really like to ask the Department of Energy communicate with the local people, especially the Kanaka Maoli. Just doesn't matter what point. The United States does not have jurisdiction in Hawaii. This is my country. This is my resources.
Here.
Okay? I'm not going to debate you on this because we can't decide this in this room. I'm asking you to consider this matter when you start talking about this. Okay? And believe me, you know, you guys got it, you even have it on your PowerPoints, the historic and customary values of this. Well, what are you going to ask about it? Nobody's asked us yet.
Yeah.
You talk about us, about how caring you're going to be for us. Never once did you ever call us. So, you know, I'm not trying to be a jackass here. I'm trying to tell you that, look, I'm alive. I'm here. I've been around for 45 years doing this stuff. It's very annoying. But I have to keep doing it. But, see, still let me die and no one asks me a question. Jeez, I've been doing this too long. At least ask me a question. Thank you very much.
Paul Kackadal, followed by Suzanne Wakeland and Nelson Holmes.
Aloha. Paul Kuykendall, my last name is spelled Kuykendall. Aloha. I appreciate all the work and effort that you've made in doing this PEIS. We do need help on this island. You know, you wonder where all these geothermal activists came from. They all live around the PGV plant. They all live around the old HDPA plant. And the reason is, when you talk about potential impacts in your charts, you talk about the potential impact of health and safety, groundwater, noise and vibration. We here, because of our experience, they're going to do it again. We've had health and safety problems. We've had groundwater problems. We've had noise and vibration. Last week, I live a mile from PGV. I'm awakened at night by PGV. When you talk about best management practices, what I hear is the PR we hear from PGV. We hear that PGV wants to go above and beyond the regulations. The reality is, we've had civil defense emergencies more than any other power plant in Hawaii at PGV. I live a mile from the plant. So in April and March last year, there was something tripped the plant, and they had a release. And civil defense came out and they did a reading that was much higher than what PGV was telling us was going to happen. And since then, EPA has done an investigation, and you probably saw the paper yesterday, that there were 14 violations of the Clean Air Act. And the last violation, the last finding was, PGV has failed to maintain a safe facility, taking such steps necessary to prevent releases. When they say releases, they're talking about hydrogen sulfide, which they say in their letter is an extremely hazardous substance. So when you talk about potential hazards, we think about our experience. And that's why we're against geothermal. It's not because we were born thinking that we wanted to be activists. It was because we have experienced geothermal. And it was even before PGV. HDPA was done by the State of Hawai'i, and they dumped their brine on the ground. And when the EPA asked at our request that they look at what's happened to the groundwater, DOH said, oh, it's no problem because we already know that groundwater is saline anyway. And by the way, we did it in an unlined pond. We scraped all the soil away, so we can't take soil samples. So, that's our experience. And that's why when you want to talk about potential impacts, we feel it in our hearts that again, we're going to be set upon. And let me just say this. Right now, PGV is producing, last year it was 22% of the island's electricity. Puna uses about 6%. So when you talk about geothermal making energy less expensive, it hasn't happened on this island. We're more expensive than the other islands that don't have geothermal. Also, that energy is being exported from a mile from my house to Kona. And there's no reason it should be exported to Oahu so that we can have the impacts in our neighborhood so that other people can leave their hotel rooms open and still air condition their room. So, mahalo, I appreciate what you're doing, and know that, it's our hearts that are on the line because this is our families and this is our farms. Mahalo.
Yeah.
My name is Suzanne Wakelin, SUZANNEWAKELIN. And so I want to start out by saying I appreciate the work that you've been doing and the opportunity to provide input. I appreciate the work that you have been doing and the opportunity to provide input. I live in Kona. I echo solidly the previous speaker. I understand completely. I'm living in the same area, dealing with the same issues. However, in this case, also, I'd like to express my concern about the section in the draft report about geothermal. Specifically about enhanced geothermal systems, which incidentally is against the law in the County of Hawaii. Enhanced geothermal, hydrofracking or hydroshearing, whatever you want to call it, has a number of serious potential negative impacts on the environment. The only impact that is mentioned is the problem of induced seismicity. There have been studies on this problem with regards to fracking elsewhere. However, the specifics of Hawaii geology and volcanology are not addressed. The report refers to the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology studies, and PICHTR, that's the Pacific International Center for High Technology Research. They published a report last year. However, there's a strong bias for EGS technology without addressing any of the negative impacts. So I'm concerned that by partnering with Dept, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, there's an implicit bias in this PEIS with regards to the inter-island cable, centralized power generation, and the smart grid. Dept's objective is to make policy determinations with respect to economic development. Dept does not appear to have any interest in environmental, cultural, or cost impacts. So the whole landscape with regards to energy generation and utilities is changing. It's in a state of flux right now. And the draft PEIS report does not seem to address this fact. It does not address the problem that continued growth is not sustainable. It's irresponsible to simply enable business interests and continued growth of consumption under the banner of green energy. I'll finish by saying no to geothermal in Hawaii and no to the Interisland cable.
Nelson.
Here. What I wanted to say has been put on the record by the other speakers, so thank you.
The last speaker that signed up is Maureen Cruz. And as we wait for Maureen, if there is anybody else that would like to speak, please gather your thoughts.
Could I say one more thing?
So Maureen's not here?
So, I don't need the mic, I think I can project. Renewables.
Well, can I see if there's anybody else that wants to speak?
Well, nobody raised their hand.
Well,
It'll be short. Renewable energy brings sustainable employment along with it, and you can look this up. So if there's concerns about bringing jobs to the island, these are truly sustainable, clean employment. So for those people that are interested in that too, I forgot to put that in my book. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just stepped out of the bathroom. Did you just ask if anybody else has anything else to say?
Yeah.
I just said something else.
Take my 3 minutes.
Not often, right?
no.
Thanks. Hi again. One of the parts that I didn't bring up that I thought is very important for us to look at as the peoples living in Hawaii, the water use. You can't afford to take your fresh water and throw it into the water and pollute the ocean. You can't afford to do that. You know, Hawaii has a very unique situation here. We've got the only parking lot and the only fresh water 25-mile radius. You don't want to lose those qualities by some from the word. Not only that, that's causing ocean-wise, it's causing dead zones in the ocean too. And so there are so many impacts that impact me as a Hawaiian, but it impacts everybody else too. And it's threatening to everybody else also.
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For the record, I'm Kate Hunt again. I was doing some homework and I noticed that the Department of Energy has done some extensive research on the wave energy. And if there's a need, for whatever reason that I don't know of, to have a grid system, that seems to be the best way to go. The 2009 study that is online is well worth the read. And just recently, they compiled a 2012 environmental impact study. And it's pretty extensive, 143 pages. And I think that, as I said, if for some reason we need to keep a grid, that would make the most sense. If we study what's happening in Kaneohe at the military, they've had some pretty good results. Quite a few companies out there have devices that ride on the waves. Seems like from all the studies done so far, far less risk to our environment than trying to put some super cable down through the water. That to me, 145 miles, gee, that's a lot of area you have to patrol in case of a terrorist attack. So just my thoughts on that one. Thank you.
Aloha, Robert Patrici again. I wanted to talk about fracking a little bit because I've spent this earlier part of the year at the legislature working on geothermal issues, and we got a bill passed through the House and the Senate to ban fracking in Hawaii. And it went to conference committee where it died in conference committee. And it was a geothermal regulatory bill that the geothermal industry needed to permit their project. So they really wanted the bill. And in it, we had restored contested cases and a process for the community that we really wanted. So there were a lot of things in there that everybody wanted, but they couldn't agree on fracking. The rest of it took a half an hour or whatever, then they fought for 4 hours over the ban on fracking. And they all said they don't want to frack, and all the testimony all year, we don't want to frack, we don't want to frack. But they wouldn't even give us a 2-year moratorium on fracking. So I tried to talk to Andrea about it earlier, and I think DBED's position is they support fracking. I know DLNR's position is we can regulate fracking. We don't need any further regulations. I'm telling you guys, they want to frack. And when I talked to Andrea about the water, because climate change, we've been reading about climate change, and one of the problems that Hawaii is expected to have for climate change is water.
Right.
We're going to need the water, and the fracking presents a real problem for the water. And she said to me, don't you know the water's already polluted, or it's already salinity, and the DOH says so, because the DOH says so. Well, I don't think that's I mean, I'm not trying to knock her, but I don't think that's an okay reason. So let's go ahead and frack. The water's got some salinity in it. I find that reckless. And there was one other thing.
What about our drinking water being gone? From millions of gallons of water being
Well,
wasted.
we're going to need that water, you know, and the same people that told us geothermal HCEI was going to be safe, you know, and all that are the ones that are telling us the water. Anyway, we're not going to let you frack, Don. Sorry.
Hear, hear.
Corey Hartman again. A couple more things. I'd like to see evaluation of what happens if to the big companies as we move toward renewable energy sources. Suppose the big electric generating facilities aren't needed anymore and the grid is not needed, then what? Does the Hawai'i Electric Company go out of business? What happens to the old facilities? Will ratepayers or taxpayers have to pay for some of this? And how about if we don't need the gasoline stations and the gas storage facilities, then what happens? I mean, they're not very safe, you know, facilities. The owners may go bankrupt. What will the facilities be used for? Who's going to pay to clean up any hazards? I'd like to see the option evaluated of energy service companies that help consumers maintain their systems, like maintaining solar panels, maintaining their batteries, whatever they've got. Let's see, people have talked about storage methods. Let's see, I didn't see anything about growing algae for fuel. I hope that's evaluated someplace. And also, if when looking at the undersea cable, we need to look at impacts from the projects that feed into the cable. One big concern I had was typically when new stuff comes along, the corporations get out ahead of the regulatory agencies. It happens over and over. There's new stuff developed. For example, with that Honua biofuel plant just down the coast, they were all set to get their clean air permit. And there happened to be some concerned citizens living around there who happened to have enough money to hire a lawyer, and lo and behold, they did not deserve that permit. But it would have gone ahead if there hadn't been some people that had money to hire a lawyer there. This is the kind of stuff that happens, because even the supposedly renewable energy, there's a lot of greenwashing out there, a lot of people jumping in thinking they're going to make a quick buck, and they typically get out way ahead of the regulations, so that needs to be looked at. me see. If we go into renewable energy, we'll need less fuel, less ship, less harbor facilities, less trucks. I mean, it'll change everything. So I think that needs to be looked at. And I would like to see models for planning. I mean, what's the planning process here? So far it's been projects here, there, and the other place. So I think we need, you know, we're not the first place to try to figure out how to do renewable energy right. How do we make a statewide energy policy? Maybe it's best for each location to figure out what's the best energy source. Is it good for that location to be connected into a big grid or a microgrid, or just have the individual power? There needs to be a way to determine all that, and a way to look at this statewide. And I think we need to look at our economic drivers, because that affects your energy use. Currently, tourism and the military are the major drivers. They'll be contributing to our economy, supposedly. They have a lot of impacts, but most people say that they're helping us. Anyway, well, if we become more self-sufficient for food and our other needs, which is another initiative, self-sufficiency, will we always need so much military fuel, so many pile drivers in new hotels, so much power for air conditioning, so many tour buses, airplanes, cruise ships? Will we always need so many container ships coming in? That's going to change.
You can leave your comments with us.
All right.
I'm finishing. Everyone else will. Yeah. And we can look at building codes, building design, subdivision covenants. Some people say you can't have clotheslines. Zoning, so people don't have to drive really far to work and shopping. Street design, so you don't need cars. And last thing, the various scenarios. What's the cost of maintenance? And if something goes wrong, how bad is it? How costly is it to fix it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I used to get teased about that one in school.
Everybody's left.
Yeah, are you guys going to continue?
Yeah, he's starting back up.
Oh yeah, that's another one you can play with.
Okay, another word is.
Okay, we're back in session, so can you please give Ole your full attention?
Okay, lay back again. Just a couple of quick points that I missed the last time around. One, to get liquid hydrogen, there's a couple of byproducts, and pretty non-polluting. Oxygen and maybe a little sea salt. No, not too bad. But then also, well, if you start thinking about, well, okay, using up the water in the ocean, you're gonna have the level go down. I don't think we've got too much to worry about there, but hey, they say sea levels are rising. There's atolls out there in the Pacific going under. So if we did reduce it a little bit, wouldn't be a bad thing, I don't think. So, okay, I'm done, and I think there was somebody else. I don't see her. Oh, hey.
Nobody else? I will.
I think Judith went home. I think so. I'm not sure. But she's not here.
You can hear people outside. I think you just call and talk to me. You still get on YouTube.
Thanks again. There's some realities that we have to really come to understand in Hawaii that's very unique. We're not a volcanic island. It's layers and layers of air pockets and rock. And so this fracking stuff, the potential to destroy so much is so, it is so close for even the smallest fracking experiment. When you look at the energy consumption on this island, or in the islands, you have two major players. It's the military and the telescopes. You know, so when you talk about generating all this electricity, and especially at our expense, I want to know for who?
Yeah.
And what do we get out of it?
Yeah.
Because we're not getting anything out of it except the short end of the stick. We get the sickness. We got sleepless nights. But anyway, it's like you have to talk to the people that are on the ground. You gotta get away from the state agencies that pretend they know everything because they don't do a damn thing. They run out and have these meetings that have 2-minute comment periods, like you're supposed to be a genius and be able to summarize it in 3 minutes. Nobody in this room can summarize what they're thinking in 3 minutes. So why expect the public to do so, I don't understand. But there's people like myself, there's several parties in this room who are very consistent in coming out to these meetings. I would like to see the department come out and reach out to them and let them do some speaking, to really give you some input that's not connected to a federal agency, a state agency, or a big corporate entity. It would be very, very helpful. It would sure calm down a lot of nerves around here. Because right now, we're looking at it, we're like, you know all those roads going down to Pahoa? It's not for us. They're putting those roads down there because they're going to industrialize that whole area. Which means to tell me, what's the purpose of you if they're going to make all these things in the way in the first place? The cable's already being laid. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a decisive thing going on here, whether we're going to do it. All the indications are you're doing it, you're just coming in the asses. Did it hurt yet? You know what I mean? And so I'm asking you to reach out to the people who are actually on the ground, to live through this, who have unbelievable ideas. We have great ideas that are functional. But you have to include this in that program and not listen to us. I mean, I spent almost all night last night just reading the testimonies from the last scoping time. And it's not just a handful of people that really want to know. I don't know anybody in my circle that knows about this meeting tonight. I don't. That's not good, because there's a lot of people here being affected. Anyway, it should not be at the expense of the big island to support the law. There are all kinds of mechanisms in which they can do, like those solar collector things, kind of things that can be done. What's going to run the rail? What's all going to come out of the volcano? Very important questions. Okay, who else next? Thanks.
Further comments? Andy?
You get adjourned.
On behalf of everybody, we'd like to thank you so much for coming out and sharing your 1 hour with us. So again, there's an open comment period. If you would like to provide further comment, the instructions are listed on that poster there. Thank you very much.
Can I do a closing fully? It's kind of
Yes.
sure tradition of the closing fully. Okay, aloha mai everybody. Huli kako. Thank you very much, Gabriel, for being here and allowing for the community to be able to come out and speak candidly about their interest in what's going on in this energy build-up. I really hope that those involved here had heard from the people, as people who are actually involved in this. And I really urge them to look at us as a source of information and not leave it up to state departments or corporate entities and think tanks and stuff like that, because they're not the ones who actually have to do it. But I thank you very much for allowing us to keep our patience with each other and allow ourselves to speak even if it was in difference to each other. And I ask that you guide us all home safely so we can do this another day. Mahalo nui.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Okay,